All right, let's get to our next topic, guys. Our next topic is brought to us by Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a Major League Soccer match. Remember, this Saturday, Messi comes to play the Columbus Crew at Huntington Bank Field right here in downtown Cleveland. The chance, the atmosphere, the last-minute goals. If you want to experience it live, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever before with last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and lowest price guarantees. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLS tickets, plus ticket prices drop as kickoff gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at an even better price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So, guys, we are 1 week away from the NFL draft, officially. And I had mental...
breakdown?
No. Well, I had many of those. But this was a mental deep dive just to look at all the Browns' first-round picks since they moved back to Cleveland in '99 because...
ugly list.
I knew some of them. I've forgotten others. And I put these guys into tiers. So I'm going to read you all 28 names first in chronological order. Then we'll decide if we want to go from the best tier to the worst tier or the worst tier to the best tier. So here are the 28 names that we are now going to put into different tiers. In order: Tim Couch, Courtney Brown, Gerard Warren, William Green, Jeff Faine, Kellen Winslow II, Braylon Edwards, Cameron Wembley, Joe Thomas, Brady Quinn, Alex Mack, Joe Haden, Phil Taylor, Trent Richardson, Brandon Whedon, Barkevius Mingo, Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, Danny Shelton, Cameron Irving, Corey Coleman, Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers, David Njoku, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, Jed Wills, and Greg Newsome.
What's funny is it's mostly shit, as we know. But there was that one stretch where they actually did pretty well because they had Joe, then they had a bad pick the next year, but then they took Mack, then they took Hayden.
Yeah.
Like
and
those
Phil
are three.
Taylor.
What's that?
And Phil Taylor
was pretty good before he got hurt.
I mean, they've drafted as many convicted felons as they have Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
It's 1-to-1.
Why would you do that?
Kellen Winslow.
But that was a
Why would you
decent.
do
That was a
that?
decent 5-year
You always
stretch.
got a poor rain on it,
We-
man.
we-
What did that comment have to be said? You like bull with the media
so negative,
members.
so negative. Always picking on players.
Did you listen to the names? Poor Colin Sexton.
Oh, get out of here with that.
All right, so let's put them into categories.
Do we want to go from
Go
the
top
best
to
to
bottom.
worst or worst to best?
Best to worst.
Best to worst. All right, Steve, we're going to start at the top then,
I mean,
449.
Myles.
So the first tier
Joe,
Yeah.
was the Hall of Fame tier.
Myles
And
Joe.
there are two
Yeah.
guys in this tier.
That's it.
That is it. This is simple. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
some
sorry.
of these
They
are
do
very-
have
very
they do have
easy.
2 Hall of Famers and
Yeah.
1 convicted felon, so
that's
they are
true.
winning. They're winning the Hall of Famers. Right?
And as
I
bad
forgot about that.
as bad as the Browns have drafted, and they've been one of the worst, maybe the worst drafting team since '99. I don't know that there's all that many teams that have drafted 2 Hall of Famers since '99. There's probably a lot that haven't.
How many teams have had top 5 picks in the last 28 years?
As often as them,
Yeah.
2 or 3 teams, maybe.
Carolina.
I mean,
No.
it's a pretty big target they've been shooting at for 30
I hear you.
years.
Oh yeah, listen.
Hey, Jason, you just Debbie Downer.
He's saying how rare it is to draft Hall of Famers.
Boy, Jason's negative.
Yeah, it is. So he's picking on people. By the way, and as great as Myles Garrett is, he was the wrong pick because they should have taken Mahomes.
Why do you have to say that, though? Like,
Is that not true?
Go to the next
I mean,
tier.
in hindsight,
man.
yes,
Go to
of
the
course.
next tier.
Although at the time,
That's
doing
just
radio
like
at the
what he
time,
just said.
I never once, as far as I can remember,
of
said they
course
should have
not.
drafted Patrick
That's just like the
Mahomes.
Cavs should have taken Giannis, but they'd all been fired
Right.
the next day if they took Giannis.
Whoa.
All right, so the next tier, below Hall of Fame, is and by the way,
Yeah.
these are my opinion
Yeah.
on tiers. I didn't use, like, because player X made a Pro Bowl, he's
All right,
a
we
Pro
got
Bowler.
it. We got it.
So I went in all pro caliber players. And out of the 26 other possible options, I thought there was only one player
Joe Haden.
that fit the all pro category.
Joe Haden. Alex
It was-
Mack.
It is not Joe Haden. It is Alex Mack. He made 3 all pros during his career. He's a center, so it's hard to find statistics and whatnot, but he graded high in PFF every single year.
Alex Mack was
3-time
fantastic.
All-Pro.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the better centers of the 21st century.
Yeah, but I don't agree that he's the only All-Pro.
They traded back, and then when they drafted him, they said Alex Mack. I said, who in the heck is Alex Mack?
Yeah.
And
he was a great player, and then they let him
one
walk.
of the best player. He went to the Falcons,
so we can
right?
argue the next two because the next category was perennial Pro Bowl caliber
Yeah, put
players.
those guys.
And I just have two, and it's the two cornerbacks, Joe Haden and Denzel Ward. So those three guys.
Joe Haden never made All-Pro?
Hayden made one All-Pro. Denzel never made an All-Pro.
Now, I would have made that one category. It's silly to me to break it down. But Mike asked me yesterday off the air who was better, Joe Haden and Denzel Ward. I said Joe. It was tough. I just think Joe was more reliable than Denzel.
Denzel's had too many injuries.
Yeah. Joe in his first 5 seasons only missed more than one game once, whereas Denzel did almost every year, miss at least 3-4 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Joe at his best was better than Denzel. I think it's close, but I think at his best he was better than Denzel, and he was more reliable.
You asking me?
Yeah, man, of course.
Put the camera on.
Don't be biased. Don't be biased.
He's taking his guy.
Denzel, go Bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not fair. Who do you think was better, Jason? It's tough. I mean, they're both really good.
Honestly, I'd have to go back and look at.
No, Joe Haden.
I don't remember.
Joe Haden, we talk about some great seasons. Remember, was you here today? I was talking about all the greatest corner seasons, Champ, Nnamdi, Reeves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe actually had a season where his was up there, like really good. I can't remember what year it was, but Joe had a season.
Probably the year he was All-Pro.
Where he was, it probably is, where he shut down a lot of top guys too. So if you're going off of that, like that's his best season. Denzel, I don't know what did, because Denzel, it's hard. First of all, it's harder to make All-Pro right now for him because it's a lot of politics involved. But I think talent-wise, Denzel's the better player. But when you talk about production on the field, Joe was better.
It's really close. I
It
mean,
is
they're
very
both
close.
in the same caliber
Very
of player. Joe was also, this is maybe not fair to factor it in, Joe was a good leader. He was a great representative of Cleveland. He loved Cleveland.
He used to go to Cavs games and wear the Verjao wig.
He's still at Cavs games.
He still goes to Cavs games.
Jason. He's still
He's
there.
That was
every
hard,
time
when the Browns let him walk, or they cut him.
They cut him.
Fans were devastated because he was such a popular player.
It was the two worst decisions they made that year. They cut me and then they cut him.
I'm saying cutting you was worse. I have to admit, at the time, I thought Joe Haden was starting to really tail off. But he picked it back up again with Pittsburgh.
I mean, when he went to Pittsburgh allowed him to play off. With G-Dub wanted to press and all those things.
Right.
And he was going to cover 2, and Joe wasn't. He was a man-to-man guy. So Joe went to Pittsburgh, started to play off. I talked to him about it.
Yeah.
It really slowed the game down for him. It allowed him to play a couple more years at a high level.
I love Joe. He used to come on with Dustin and I all the time. He was such a likable guy.
Joe was. He's
Not
great.
only did he wear the wig,
Yeah.
he was in full jersey.
Yeah, he was into it.
He was in like basketball shorts and a jersey, sitting courtside.
He come to Indians games too.
Yeah.
I mean, he
of
was all about
jerseys.
Cleveland sports. He was a great representative of the city.
Speaking of jerseys,
Yeah.
I just got my Darius Garland jersey.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna wear
Nice.
it. I'm gonna wear it eventually. Probably next week.
You
I'll
wear it with an undershirt, or you just go.
Well, right now I'm not in the best shape because I haven't lifted in 3 weeks, so my
Yeah.
body's kind of like showing that.
Damn.
Yeah, I had the wrist injury, so I couldn't do upper body stuff.
Too much,
Jason, before we go on to the next one, and we can ignore that comment. Jason, Mack, Ward.
By the
and
way, when
Hayden.
you say we should ignore that comment by Bull, you bring more attention to it instead of just moving on.
Well, I tried to move on. You brought it back up, and I just let Titus
Okay,
laugh
go
like
ahead.
a little girl for a second. So, Jason, would you put those three in the same tier, or do you have any issue with me separating Mack one step higher than those two?
man.
It was close. I went back and forth on that a lot.
I'd probably put him in the same tier because I think Mack was great when he was here, but then
Yeah.
he went on to have, you know what I mean? Like, are you dividing? There's probably not many people that would have this.
Yeah.
But like Mitchell Schwartz was good when he was here, and then he was excellent. Like
Right, he's better
after.
Yeah, sure.
So Mack was very good when he was here, but he wasn't here all that long, and then he went
Yeah.
on in
Atlanta.
Yeah. So for that reason, I guess I'd probably lump them
Right.
together. But whatever, it doesn't matter.
I'd put them all in the same category.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll defer to you guys as
Yeah.
you covered them all. I only know Denzel.
They were all very good players
Yes.
and certainly very good picks.
Fair enough. All right, the next category was legitimate starters. Not necessarily great players, but guys who you drafted in the first round who turned out to be guys who started for your team for quite a while. I thought there was 4 guys in this list. David Njoku, Kellen Winslow, Braylon Edwards, and Baker Mayfield.
Okay, so think about this for a minute. The Browns have had how many first-round picks since 99?
28.
Bring up that list again.
What, this one?
These are your 6 through 9 best first-round picks. Now, if we're just talking about their time, well, either way, Baker is the best player in that group, whether it's just their time in Cleveland or beyond. Right?
I'm trying to think of people outside of this.
I mean, Braylon and Winslow really only had one really good year each.
Yeah.
But they were
legitimate
starters
though.
Yeah.
They were bad picks.
I wouldn't say that.
No?
Winslow at the time, I thought
right, at the time, of course. And same thing with Braylon coming out. But he was overall a disappointment. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering a little bit.
He had one great year here. I think it was that when
Derek 2007
Anderson?
where he had 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I guess when Derek Anderson was throwing to him, I think.
It was the 07
2007,
season.
right?
Yep, 07.
Yeah, that was Derek Anderson, yeah. I mean, his second best year with the well, first of all, he only played for the Browns for what, 5 years?
I'm considering this is kind of their career bowl.
Okay.
Like as a guy you drafted in the first round, turned out to be
Braylon Edwards' second best year of his career, yardage wise, is 904 yards. He had 7 touchdowns that year.
With us?
You said 5. You said 5 touchdowns for Winslow?
For Winslow, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So Braylon Edwards had the great year in 2007 also.
The 16 touchdowns.
That was it. He had the magnificent year. Outside of that, he had 1 year with the Jets in 2010 where he had 53 catches on 101 targets for 904 yards and 7 touchdowns. He really did nothing else the rest of his career.
53 catches on 101 targets?
Yeah, terrible.
Yep. Not a good season.
You know how bad that is?
It's one of the lowest.
Man.
It's one of the lowest catch per target ratios in NFL history.
He had 23 touchdowns those 2 years, 17 touchdowns the rest of his career. So, I mean, it's a bad pick. There's no debating that.
So you would drop him down to the next
I'd probably drop him down.
Yeah.
All right, the next category is starters, but could definitely upgrade. And you know what, Bull? Actually, upon reading this next list, I think you're probably right.
I mean, you could put Winslow in that.
I think Baker and Njoku, to me, are the only ones in that category that you had initially.
So you would drop Winslow and Edwards to this next category.
Yeah.
The category I had was starters, but could upgrade, which included Newsome, Peppers, Phil Taylor, Jeff Faine, and Gerard Warren, who, when you go back and look at his stats, was a disappointment for a top 3 pick, but was a consistent guy, and he started a lot of games.
I think if Phil Taylor had stayed healthy, he would have been a solid. I mean, Phil Taylor was a good player.
Yeah, he was.
He was a good player here, good solid player. Not a superstar, but a good solid player. And then he got hurt, and it sabotaged his career.
I see him every game day.
Man, that is a large human being.
You can't miss.
Oh,
you can't miss.
I remember him coming in studio with us for the first time with Bull and Fox, and I was like, my God.
He's gigantic.
You ain't going to miss.
He is a monster.
If he was healthy, I do think he's up. He just had that one season and couldn't stay healthy, so I couldn't put him in a higher category.
No, I hear you.
Nothing against Phil.
Phil Taylor was a good, solid player. That was in the Browns' scheme of picks, he was one of their better first-round picks.
I mean, so really 7 of the 28 were
legitimate starters.
I'll say 8. If you include Phil Taylor, it's 8.
So you're moving Taylor. I don't think you can move him up. I think he's right where he needs to be.
I think he's the 8th best first-round pick, and the last one that I would say, it was a decent pick.
All right, you ready for the next category?
Oh, boy. Now it's getting ugly.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have worked in a different situation.
Okay.
Guys that did not pan out for the Browns, but maybe they showed something.
Okay, I like
and
that
one
category.
of these guys I'm curious if you agree with. Tim Couch, Courtney Brown, Cameron Wimble, you had a great rookie season and never panned out. Danny Shelton and Jed Wills.
No.
Now, Jason, you were on the Jed Wills train. I went back and forth on where to place him. He did start a bunch of games. He was not good in a lot of those games. He had his ups and downs.
I would actually put Jed in the category above that.
In the starters?
Yeah. No, not the one you just had. Starters, but could do
starters,
better.
but could upgrade.
Yeah.
I actually agree.
Jed doesn't belong in that.
I don't think the Browns hurt Jed Willis. The only one that's definitely in that category is Tim Couch.
Yes.
Tim Couch, if Tim had gone to a better situation, if he had stayed healthy, you never know.
Yeah.
If Tim had stayed healthy and had played with an established franchise, he probably would have at least been a solid NFL quarterback.
And he wasn't bad when he was here.
Right, when he was healthy, but he got the crap beat out of him.
Yeah. He had no protection.
It destroyed him.
The different situation would have been if Jed Wills never went to left tackle.
Danny Shelton was garbage. I don't know why he's in
He
that
actually,
category.
I went back and looked. I actually think he was better than we remember.
You know what's interesting about that? You couldn't be more wrong. That guy was trash.
Once again, I was not.
What are you
dialed
basing
in.
that on? Don't tell me a PFF grade.
No, I went to Pro Football Reference. I checked the
Yeah.
stats. I then compared him to the PFF grades. He got terrible later in his career, but those first 3 years in Cleveland, he graded out pretty high in the
He
numbers.
did nothing, man.
Now
That
the
guy-
numbers may be telling a different story because I'm going off. I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I was in 2015 when he was drafted. I was a wee pup in college, so like.
You know what he was most known for here?
Being fat.
Well, besides that, jumping on piles after the play was over.
JOP?
He was highly ranked at JOPs.
All right, so we can drop Danny Shelton then.
Yeah, he stinks.
We have two more categories. We have swing and misses, and then what the heck were they doing?
Yes, okay.
So we have 9 guys in these two
Oh,
categories.
my God.
Had a hard
No, I
time
think a lot of
splitting
those
up
guys
between-
in that last category should be in this
Oh, yeah.
category.
Say it
Including
again, Jason?
Danny Shelton, obviously.
Yeah, Shelton, Courtney Brown,
Yeah.
Wembley should all be in this category.
In the swing and miss.
The Cam
Listen,
Wembley
I
thing
didn't want to
really
put too
broke
many
my
guys in
heart.
one category because then it messed up the graphic.
And you had Jabril Peppers too high also, by the way.
I thought
He was
Cam
a starter
Wembley
for long
was gonna
enough.
be
I
bad.
don't know.
He was a
Damn,
starter, but can upgrade.
boy.
That's the
he
right
was-
category.
Although Greg Williams made him play in North Dakota, so.
Yeah, Peppers was in the correct category.
All right.
All right,
fair
swings
enough.
and misses.
Yeah.
William Green, Trent Richardson, Cam Irving, Barcavius Mingo, and Corey Coleman. And remind you, there is a tier lower. So
Green.
I have
Green was,
Run, William, run.
yeah, I'm probably getting too hung up on Run William Run.
the numbers were not good.
I feel like he wasn't terrible, but I don't remember. Richardson definitely swing and miss. Cam
Yeah.
Irving, yes. Mingo, yes. Coleman, yes.
I almost feel like Corey Coleman should be in the what were you thinking category. He was such a bum.
Where
that
was
guy.
he taken?
19th.
See, that's too low to be.
Yeah, but like
That's
he
the
had a
bottom
bad
half.
reputation already.
I need to know who was after him. Like,
There were some good wide receivers taken after him, weren't there?
after him?
Refresh
He,
my
he
memory.
was 15th, sorry. I'll look up the
15th.
in the
We
2016
knew Barkevius Mingo was not going to be good. That was a bad draft, though,
Yes,
if
that
I
was a
remember
bad draft.
correctly.
Yeah.
guys, the receivers taken in the first round after Corey Coleman.
Yeah.
Will Fuller,
Nothing.
Josh Dotson, Laquan Treadwell, and that's it.
Those guys are all trash, too.
yeah.
Fuller was,
Se-
Fuller
second-
was
second
good
round.
early in his career, but he would always get hurt.
That's
Second
the-
round receivers: Sterling Shepard, Michael Thomas, go Bucks.
hey, go Bucks. That's where
Tyler
they. That's where they
Boyd.
should have went.
Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd.
Braxton Miller,
Go Bucks.
Chris Moore,
That's
Pharaoh
my
Cooper.
boy.
Demarcus Robinson.
Wasn't
Not a
wasn't
great receiver draft.
No.
No, so I
Boyd
think
was solid, and whoever you mentioned before, Michael Thomas.
He's
obviously,
fine.
was
If he was a top 10 pick, you can say, what were you thinking?
all right. I can live with him just being in the swing or miss.
William Green never had more than 890 yards in a season. He only broke 600 yards once in his
Oh, yeah, he
career
was definitely
and finished
swing
his
and
career
miss.
in 4 seasons
All
with
Run,
just over
William,
2,000
run.
Yeah,
yards.
I'm too hung up on Run William Run. He's probably in the right spot. He's definitely in the right spot.
And the last category, the what the you know what were the Browns thinking?
Two of these guys are from the same first
They
round.
are from the same first round class. I had Quinn, Whedon, Gilbert, and Manziel.
Quinn shouldn't be there
Why not? Make the
Be-
case for Brady Quinn.
because he was free falling on the draft, and they went up to get him. Like, you could say it didn't work, but
Right.
he's
At the
not
time,
in the-
it wasn't.
He's not in the what were you thinking?
No.
I thought the fact they traded up for him made it even worse.
No.
Because of how bad he was as a pro.
I agree with Jason. He was highly thought of at the time.
Yeah.
He should be in the swing and miss category. The other three are fine, even though I will admit that I liked the pick of Brandon Whedon at the time.
You like that?
I did. I don't know what
Do
I
you
was
think
thinking.
Tyler Shook is just like him?
Well, Tyler Shook's 3 years younger.
When
And the
Wait, real
average
quick, hold on.
quarterback.
I got called
Yeah.
timeout.
Yeah.
Tybus has said his name wrong every time today.
Shuck.
No one's called him out.
Sorry, you're right. You're right.
Thank
Shuck.
you. I have some
Tyler
accountability on
Shuck.
the show.
Pardon?
You are correct,
Wow,
Mike.
Tyler
We
Shook.
have not picked on Tyvus like we
Sorry.
did you. You're right. Tyvus, it's Shuck. Like, think of that. That's how Mike remembers
That's
it.
literally
corn.
what I have to
Like
do every time I
corn.
say his name.
No. Mike remembers it by
Like
saying
corn.
the F word in his head.
Shuck.
But obviously, Johnny Manziel and Gilbert was.
those were definitely.
I mean, that was insane that they made like the 2 worst picks you could possibly make in that draft.
So, to recap real quick, we had 28 overall picks here.
Yeah.
Thomas, Garrett, Mack, Haden, Ward, Baker, and Njoku is 7.
Yeah, Phil Taylor's probably 8, I think.
So you want to go 7, and we'll split the difference on Phil Taylor.
I mean, I don't know.
7.5 out of 28 first-round picks since '99 have turned into legitimate starters. That's a 25.
That's terrible.
26% hit rate if you include
You
Phil
can't
Taylor.
count Phil Taylor. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll take Phil Taylor out.
So it's
so
7. That's
7 to 28, that's a quarter.
25% hit rate
Just
in
a
the first round.
just a quality starter.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
all pro, you know.
Yeah.
They made 5 really good picks. The first 5 guys. Baker was okay, even though it didn't work here. And Njoku was an okay, especially because Njoku wasn't. What was he?
He was at the bottom of the first round.
Late first.
So that he's been
That's fine.
again, he's
Yeah.
been fine.
So 7 guys who have become legitimate, we could say
Yeah.
good picks. Now
Right.
let's go to the
and by the way, 2 of those 7 left here after their first contract.
Yes.
Baker and Mac, right? Or did Mac sign one extension here?
I don't
before
think he
left?
signed an
I don't think
extension.
he did either.
No.
Let's look at the next group. These
Yeah.
are not the total bust. These are guys that had careers, weren't complete misses.
Yeah.
Winslow, Braylon Edwards, Newsome, Peppers, Taylor, Jeff Faine, and you guys want to add Jed Wills to that category?
Yeah. I think that's a good place for him.
Anyone
Yeah.
else?
I mean, those guys are all not, just not.
They're
good.
NFL players.
Yeah, they're NFL players. They're not really good
So
starters
that's 7 more.
That's half.
So
We're
it's
up to
half that we have determined
that are like
We're-
serviceable NFL guys.
at least serves, which means 14, half of the 28 they have drafted since
Were total
1999 have been swinging misses. In
Again, I'm going to give I think we all would agree to give the caveat with Couch being unfair
Yes.
to him.
Yes.
Unfair to him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
in different circumstances for different
Because
players.
I think he should be in the category of NFL player, but I'm probably projecting some of that on just the amount of injuries that he's had.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
We good?
You know what? I'm curious. I don't know if we know the answer. I'm just wondering, who drafted the top 7?
Like
GMs, you mean?
GM?
Yeah.
Who was the GM when they came back in 99?
Yeah. The GM when they came back in 99 was guy from the 49ers.
Dwight Clark.
Dwight Clark, yeah. It was Dwight Clark and Carmen Policy.
Well, but 99, they didn't draft most those guys. The best players were not drafted then.
So Joe was drafted by Phil Savage, I think, right?
Right.
Myles was obviously
Drafted by
Dorsey.
Baker drafted
Baker
by Dorsey.
Denzel
Mac
was Dorsey.
Was Mac drafted by Sashi?
What year was?
2009.
I don't know who was here in 09.
No, I don't. I wasn't Sashi.
Browns GM in 09 was George.
Coquinus,
Coquinus.
Yes.
but he wasn't picking players. Was it Mangini? Who's the head coach?
Yeah. Yeah.
2009 season. The head coach was Mangini.
So that's a Mangini pick.
Mangini was Mac.
Njoku was Dorsey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at Dorsey's hit
Yeah.
rate compared to
Who else was? Denzel was Dorsey.
Dorsey.
Too. Yeah.
Same draft.
So Denzel.
Who was Hayden? Hayden was 2010, so it beat Mangini again.
Yeah. So Mangini drafted
Was
6.
it Mangini in 210? Was he here?
Yeah, that was his last year, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mangini got 2.
Who drafted Joe? Thomas.
Phil
Savage.
Phil Savage.
Okay.
So 4 guys for John Dorsey effed up by making Freddie Kitchens the coach. That cost him his job.
And
the battle with the Podesta.
yeah,
and
there
all
was a
that
lot
stuff.
of backroom stuff going on
Yeah.
there.
And to some degree, drafting Baker. If he had,
Wait, hold on. We're getting a comment from the chat that
Yeah.
Njoku and Myles were Sashi's last year before Dorsey took over. I'm going to confirm that real quick.
That's right. Yeah, you're
Myles was
That's
Sashi?
right. That's right. That's a bad job out of us. That is correct.
Oh, because Myles was coming off the winless season.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah, that was Sashi.
Yes,
that was
Sashi. He's right. They took Myles, Peppers, and Njoku. They had 3 first-round picks that year. They took Myles, Peppers, and Njoku, and that was Sashi's last
Well,
year.
they at least got 3 NFL players out of it.
Yeah.
It's
Did
more
you confirm
than
it, Mike? I'm
most
pretty sure
regimes.
it is true. We messed up on that one. So Sashi. So 2 for Sashi.
So
2 for Dorsey.
Baker was Dorsey's first pick.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
Sashi,
why-
Sashi was the one that drafted that. He got fired mid-season. That's
Yeah.
why there's
Right.
the spinoff. But
Yes.
Sashi did draft those guys. So 2
Yep.
for Sashi, 2 for Dorsey, 2 for Mangini, and 1 for Joe Savage.
Right.
In the top 7.
Did you just say Joe Savage?
Phil Savage.
Phil.
Savage. Sorry, Phil Savage. Shout out to Evan419 for that correction.
Good job, Evan.
And anyone else in the chat, but Evan texted me. So 1 week from today, guys, hopefully Travis Hunter joins the top 7 of that list.
Yeah.
And
now they've had. Now should we do second round picks now?
Dude, we could do that for another day.
They have some good second round picks. Nick Chubb.
They have had good second
Mitchell
round
Schwartz was a second round
Let's save
pick.
that for another day because I'll make the tiers and we'll put
Brian
it in the
Rubisky was a second round
Brian
pick.
Rubisky.
Go Bucks.
Yeah.
Go Bucks.